And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And we are back here with another great episode of Overnighters. We took a week break. I think Jason and I both needed that. Jason had mentioned, I'm pretty sure on either his last podcast or our last podcast, that he was coming down with like this head cold thing, like some stuffiness going on. And interestingly enough, I must have caught it through the computer because a few days shortly after that, I felt terrible enough to make me go get a COVID test. It came back negative. But yeah, we definitely needed a week off, but we're well rested. I took like a 3-hour nap before we got started here.
If we can, if we could spread COVID through the computer, we're
We are
effed.
effed in the A so bad. And with that being said, let me bring on our amazing co-host, Jason Edgar. Jason, you feeling any better?
Welcome. I remember saying that on the podcast, and I never had repercussions. It was like feeling it at that moment. I've said for a while I've felt really good over the past 2 years, like weirdly really good.
Yeah.
Before it was even a thing, there was one day, like in January of 2020, where I was just really tired for some weird reason,
Mm-hmm.
and it went away. And
Well,
lethargy was one of the first kind of like feelings of COVID too, the first
mhm.
variant.
Well, I remember in your intro for your show for the longest time, you took a soundbite from an episode where you're like, I am fully convinced that I had COVID back in January and I was just spreading it around. Like, what a
That was
terrible realization that is. Like, oh shit, am I like one of the first people to like be a super spreader? Like, oh my God.
uh, well. Hey, Aaron. I am fairly sure you're excited to share some news with our YouTube audience and our Oops All Top oh, wait Oops All Topics Network audience.
Yeah.
So go ahead, man.
Well, I mean, something that I know that I'm pretty sure that I've at least talked on my particular episode or my particular show, and I know that we've talked about before. One of the main things that I've ever wanted to become is a father, and I am very happy to announce that we found out late Friday morning, because it was around 3 a.m., that Lisa is finally pregnant. So we are finally going to be having a kid. She's about 5 weeks in. I think it's 5 weeks today. So just a little bit, just about the size of a sesame seed is what our little nugget is at right now. So I'm extremely excited. I broke down and cried, obviously, as any, good father, or at least father wanting children most likely would. It's for me the best, next to marrying Lisa, it's definitely the best feeling that I've ever had. And I'm extremely excited to see what damage this kid can cause.
Uh, Well, congrats, man.
Thanks.
How many years? About 10 years out of high school. You probably have admitted you've sowed your wild oats. And, unlike maybe our parents, we can go into this parenting just head on, focus on it. They didn't have podcasts to listen to. And that's starting a spreadsheet of advice you're going to get from dads. The reason this podcasting is so good for infants and toddlers, from my experience, is that podcasting allows you to do two things at once. You put your headphones in, you can do dishes. You put your headphones in, you can run a mile. You could put your headphones in, you could feed a baby a bottle. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
and sleep, as you know. I'm trying not to be super just vague there. You broke down and cried. That's awesome.
Yeah.
saying goodbye to your free time. But you know what? I tell Jess all this all the time. If I didn't have kids, I would just be watching Game of Thrones for the fourth time, or
Right.
Breaking Bad for the sixth time, like just wasting away as a human. And
Yeah.
now it's like, now I kind of am excited to watch stuff. I've watched those Clint Eastwood movies. I'm no longer watching Game of Thrones anymore because I feel like it's like, well, besides the terrible last ending, but what are you excited to do with your kids? Because my kids can't even really watch Marvel right now. So, and that's what I want
Right.
to do. Watch Ant-Man and
Yeah.
Spider-Man movies. What are you thinking you're going to enjoy with your kids when they grow up?
Honestly, for me, my greatest moments, or the things that I had the most fun whenever I was with my dad, was listening to music. My dad was, and still currently is a big music head, and he always like, I remember one time we were listening to I can't remember what song it was, but it was Freddie Mercury, like, with Queen. And I wasn't a big fan of the song. And he's like, well, you don't have to like the song. He's like, but if you're going to be a fan of music, you need to know who these people are. You need to understand like their history, what they've started. And, it just kind of made me respect the history and kind of the lore that encompasses, what, especially rock music at the time was and has become. Um, you can't really see a whole lot right now, but I mean, I got Kiss stuff hanging up everywhere. I got a Jimi Hendrix
Hmm.
poster there in the back corner. Um, so I'm really excited to share my music with my child. I already do that a lot with Adric. Whenever I'm either picking him up or dropping him off from school, I'll play music that I really like, and he loves jamming out with me. So that's probably, so far, it's one of the most rewarding things about being a dad, or at least a stepdad, that I've experienced thus far. So I'm excited about that, and I'm really excited about watching like all of my favorite movies that I used to watch when I was a kid,
You
especially
still got the Henderson mix?
the Henderson mix. No, I don't. Oh my god.
The UCA mix or something, that it was a CD that I made you and JJ because
Yeah,
we listened to music on the way to a tournament.
yeah.
And
It was a hype music. It was
God,
great.
I picked you up from the Osho and it was already at night, and we were
Yeah.
going to drive to Henderson. It was like 5 hours away. That's how much we love debate.
That's how much we
Yeah.
wanted to do it.
Um, these days, probably 45 minutes to an hour a day, Alexa is playing music. Oh, hi, Alexa. Go away. She heard me playing music, and Frankie's dancing to it. He loves all the house music that I play. He likes Praise by Black Caviar.
Nice.
And he dances, and yeah, makes the time fly.
Yeah.
Um, as
It,
mentioned, watching movies and stuff. Okay, one last thing. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I say Adric is a big fan of Bruno Mars. He'd be like, Aaron, can we listen to that song about the guy who wants to catch a grenade? And I'm like, yes. I'm like, you can just say grenade because that's the name of the song. Uh, but what's even more entertaining is that he tries to sing the words that he doesn't know, and like he only really knows the chorus, but he tries to guess the verses and stuff like that. So like after every song we listen to, he's like, isn't it impressive that I know the words already? And I'm like, well, Adric, you may think you know the words, but hearing it from this side, you do not at all.
And going back to like I'm kind of going backwards here, but your
Yeah,
dad's kind of like, hey, you need to listen to these people like Creedence Clearwater and like, Kiss and things like that. And the music is, I'm going to sound like such a boomer, is so much better than the music today.
it is.
I didn't even grow up in that time. I don't I don't like listening to CCR, but I know who CCR is because exactly like what your dad said. It's like they're good music. And even Jess was telling me like this new Olivia Rodrigo, like she's like stealing like a lot of her music, and so she's like almost poor
Hmm.
because she's borrowing too much from Lady Gaga and Madonna,
Right.
and
Well,
Lady Gaga is like, I mean, one of her best songs sounds like Madonna, which is
hmm.
from the '80s, and Adric, you might not like Madonna, but for Pete's sake, she ruled the '80s.
Oh yeah.
So,
I mean, because because when you learn about the history of one individual, you learn about the music environment of that time. Like for instance, do you remember that song "Toy Soldiers" by Marquita? Step by step, heart
uh,
to heart. Yeah. So Marquita was expected to be like the next Madonna. Like that's what they were blowing her up into. But it never happened. So I always found like knowing that history of like kind of the quick downfall of that artist kind of adds a little bit more to the song or the music while you're listening to it. So, I absolutely agree that most music nowadays is absolute crap. Like, obviously there is good music being made, but most of it is just rehashing stuff from, like people just stealing from each other. And, even Gene Simmons would even admit that, he took like a bass riff from the Rolling Stones and just reversed it. Like that's how you come up with stuff, but I think it's a difference between, emulating and another of like just and imitating versus like just straight copying something and just like ripping something off, which,
well,
didn't happen a whole lot. unless you're Led Zeppelin ripped off pretty much all of their greatest hits.
And like comparing like Led Zeppelin to Migos is just like nothing but like bird calls.
Yeah. Oh my
I do
God.
like Cardi B and like rapping and stuff, but as I even told you and
Excuse
JJ
me.
back in the day, it's all about buttery beats. I'm almost more into like drum beats as opposed to just the lyrics.
Lyrics. Yeah.
Because I mean, I can't really empathize with Offset. Like he's he's hooking up with Cardi B in a hot tub.
Yeah. I don't think that'll be able to happen for me for at least a while.
But yeah, man, me and you were gonna have young kids, and JJ too has a younger one too, like 3 or
Yeah.
4. So we're getting older.
Yep.
And Sylvia has has a kid, and well, not the best transition to this topic, but we were going to talk about What If, the Marvel show, the past 2 episodes, and I want to talk specifically about the past 2 episodes because they've just been fantastic. In fact, I think I would rank them 4, 3, 2, 1.
Mm-hmm.
Really, looking back, the Captain Carter one was just like, what if Captain Carter was a female? Cool, that's
Right.
fine.
Female and British.
T'Challa was like they flipped parts. That's all they did. It was either a gender flip or a role flip. Part 3 was more like let's start with that one, was more like kind of like a murder mystery, because I was even like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Hawkeye shot Thor. What was really cool about that, there's a couple things. Here we go. Here's the topic.
Let's do it.
If you rewatch Thor, Hawkeye is in it. He's in it for like 30 seconds, and all he's doing is just aiming his arrow at Thor.
Yeah.
What a weird way to introduce Hawkeye. But if you're like a big fan of like the timeline, there's an 8-day span where the events of Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2 or Iron Man 1, and Thor take place.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently those are the 8 days where all the quote killings take place in episode 3.
Right.
And so if you haven't watched episode 3, pretty much all the Avengers die and they're being killed by somebody. We'll probably announce it here in a few seconds if you don't want it spoiled. But what do you think of the 3rd episode?
Well, like starting with the 3rd episode, like I was like literally on the edge of my seat because, as a nerd, you're obviously going to be invested in these characters, and like you immediately just start like, why are like all these people die? Like you immediately think like, okay, someone's doing this. It's not the Avengers killing each other off. Like that's not happening. So like but it was just so weird because the person that they introduced as the villain is literally the last person that I thought would have ended up showing up in that episode, which is what made it so like, oh my God, like that's perfect. Like such a smart way of like having an Avenger, but like an OG Avenger being the villain in all of this is like, because they do a really good job of literally tying in all the events as they're laid out in the MCU, in the Marvel movies. So you already have like this familiarity with it. But then, they have a lot of the same voice actors come back. And so it just adds like to a whole nother layer to it. And yeah, just seeing all these Avengers to start dropping dead. And it was really funny. Like that whole episode, like had a lot of really good humor, like laid out there, like Agent Coulson saying, there's a man, Caucasian, really great hair. And he's like, why is that an important detail? It's just true, sir. Like, I'm just giving the description. Like that's really funny. But really, when you watch these episodes, you just start to kind of appreciate the writing because it's voice acting, not physical acting. So you kind of separate the realism from that. So what for me, like with animation like this and like with anime and stuff like that, it has to be really good writing to pull you in. Like, the action sequences in it, are obviously a part of it. And it's really cool to see the stuff that you wouldn't be able to see in real life because it's animated. But at the same time, the writing has to be good for you to keep wanting to watch it. And the What If series has fantastic writing, and I'll go ahead and spoil the villain now if you want me to.
Yeah, because it's going to be my next point.
Yeah. So the villain being Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man, I guess turned Wasp or
Wasp,
turned
Yellow
Hornet.
Jacket. I think it's Yellow Jackets. I think.
Yeah, it's Yellow Jacket.
Okay.
Yeah. So he goes from Ant-Man to Yellow Jacket. So he basically becomes the villain from the first movie that we see of Ant-Man. But he's doing this as payback for what they did to his, for what Shield did to his daughter, which, is an ethical, debate. I think that's worth having. Like, hey, like you save all these people and you put all these people on, but you put all these people's lives on the line, and like, I have to suffer now, like I'm without a daughter because you took reckless steps and pushed her to do something that ultimately ended her life. You know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of adds that, it's like in the movie Hancock, that it focuses mainly on, you know who, like, a depressed superhero for one, but secondly, like somebody has to clean up the mess of like all of these like big events, and so kind of highlighting that aspect of superhero stories that we never really think of, it kind of translates the same here, in that, like this is an aspect of, being in the life of a superhero that you would never think of, which is, somebody dies, they're a hero, they allowed that to happen, they accepted the risk, but then the loved ones, you know how did they take it, how did they take that information, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Well, I was going to say, so I read an article that said the reason all these Avengers died was because of their hubris and foolish pride. But I don't really see that, because how could you have foolish pride if you can't even see your murderer? And so I think once again this confirms that Ant-Man, Wasp, uh, old Ant-Man, Yellow Jacket, or whatever he coughed, they're the most powerful beings.
Yeah,
Like, even like they can fly up Captain Marvel's butt or up her nose and expand and kill her brains. You saw what they did to Hulk.
yeah,
They took one of those expansion discs and just threw it at his heart. He's dead. Hulk's immortal.
yeah. Hulk tried to kill himself.
Yeah, and remember before Endgame came out, the whole theory was, oh, Ant-Man just going to fly up Thanos' ass
Yeah,
and expand. And it's like, okay, episode 3, let's see if that can really be the case. And it's true.
yeah.
I mean, the only reason they couldn't okay, his foolish, and it actually, this is a terrible bad guy motif. He explained what was going on at the very end. He could
Hmm.
have very well flew up and stung Nick Fury in Game Over,
Yeah.
but no, he had to explain the plot, and then Loki's able to step in. So yeah, I mean, once again, just proving that Ant-Man is kind of like low key, extremely powerful. If you can't see him, you can also kind of compare this also to the coronavirus. I always say that conservatives don't like the coronavirus because they can't shoot it. Well, you can shoot it with a vaccine, but
Yeah,
consult your doctor. Um, More about the vaccine later, by the way.
yeah, yeah.
Anything else about episode 3 or 2 or what we? Yes, episode 3.
Yeah, just the last thing that I wanted to say was the fact that Loki was brought into that story arc. Like the consequence of killing Thor, brings down Loki, who I, at this point would be the person to inherit Asgard at this point. So, Thor's dead, Loki fills in that spot, and he comes down to essentially avenge his brother's death and declare war on whoever did it. And then using his trickster abilities, convincing him at the end, I'm either going to make, what was it? I'm either going to make a pact with a god or a deal with the devil. I really loved that line from
Yeah.
Nick Fury. But yeah, really good episode. Really loved how it ended. Really good writing.
And so different than the other two, just because it was kind of like a mystery.
Right.
Um, and then we get to the fourth one, and I mean, I have just been gloating about this episode, or maybe not gloating is the right word, but just, I mean, I had a tweet about it. I told my brother. I told you. I sent you a message.
I called my mom.
I took a multivitamin. But what if Doctor Strange lost his heart and not his hands? And in the Doctor Strange movie, she doesn't go with him, right? So in this universe, the MCU, she doesn't go with him in the car ride. He texts and drives. He gets in an accident, loses his hands, he becomes Doctor Strange. But in this universe, she does go with him. She dies, and he's heartbroken, but he still becomes Doctor Strange.
Right.
Um, we've seen this before in some shows, right? Where you keep going back to the same moment. I kind of got some Groundhog Day there
Yeah, that's
because it
exactly what I
was,
thought.
just stay put, just don't move, and
Hmm.
then a robber comes in and shoots you. Like it's what you're going to talk about right now is that absolute point in time. And and Back to the Future has that too, right? Like the kiss at the Enchantment Under the Sea
Right.
dance. If that doesn't happen, the domino doesn't go, and you cease to exist.
Yeah.
And I mean, time travel's involved. You got MCU. The writing was fantastic. That's like the first 20 minutes. What were you going to say about the absolute points in time?
Well, I just thought that that was like a really, really good, because we do a lot of, especially Marvel, we're always talking about time travel and specific aspects of it, but the one thing that we never really that never really gets brought up, that is like a really good theory, is, are there points in time where there's just nothing that you can do about it? Like what happens has to happen in order for the rest of the universe to stay intact. Like, it might be a tragic event, like in this specific instance, no matter what he did to avoid this car wreck, if he got in the car with her, they got hit by seemingly the same semi every single time. If he avoided the car, there was another instance that caused her death as well. Like, they get to the party and she has a freaking heart attack, like, in the middle of them dancing. No matter what he did, she had to die in order for him to become the Doctor Strange that ends up protecting the universe, and not the Doctor Strange who ends up destroying their universe, destroying their time. So it's like what you were saying, like there are those certain key moments, like, that we really, really want to change, like in our lives. I'm sure you could go back to a certain point in your life and think like, man, if this one moment, like if I just had this, like I really feel that my life would be exactly the way that I wanted it to be. Everything would have worked out the way that it should. But, you know, not only, we can't just think about how it affects our personal universe, in the world of time travel. You have to think about how it affects the actual universe. So it's hard for us to look at that big picture of like, this is terrible for me and I don't want this to happen, but if this happens, then everything else is okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, is that, if we pluck this one little itty bitty event out of time, this one person living doesn't seemingly affect everything else. But as, I can't remember her name, in the bald lady, the ancient one in that,
Yeah,
whatever.
she goes by the Ancient One.
Yeah, the ancient one, that's what I thought. The ancient one even says like, this must happen in order to keep your universe intact, in order, like it's a linchpin in the universe, you can't pull it out. And so what happens when you do it anyway is, or this basically just drives Steven obsessed with, just like, it's super depressed. And then he finally gets to that moment of, am I going to do it, am I not going to do it? He fights the ancient one, and in order for her to have a chance at preserving the timeline, she splits him in two and sends him on the path of both wanting to learn time manipulation and also learning to move on from the past.
Unreal.
It is
Uh,
unreal.
and you saying that reminds me of our what we feel like is the metaphor for time travel, which is regret. And even the good Doctor Strange, it walks away saying enough dwelling in the past. And people should definitely not dwell in the past, because for Pete's sakes, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
I mean, and like you said, even if you had a time stone, even if you had a DeLorean and you go back and you change time, what's that going to do to your new baby, Aaron, or my two kids? Like, I can't go back and marry, or I mean, change things with a girlfriend that I really liked 4 girlfriends ago, because I'm not going to San Diego. I'm not going to. It's
Yeah.
just,
It's
I,
not
I
going to
mean,
happen.
so, but also that would be an intense power. And that's exactly kind of like what he has to literally do in order to get the power. Now, you said you didn't watch all of it. Did you see him conjuring all of the villains and then sucking their power out of
Yeah.
them?
Yeah, I did see
I
that.
mean, oh my, okay, that's another part where the it's Disney. We've said the Disney being in the background here is going to have awesome animation. That was awesome animation, and it kind of had some Sorcerer's Apprentice kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
Dark room, big shadows, scary monsters. Well, in that instance, I guess it's a big old mop, but um, more and more power. Two more things. Absolute point in time. That's another thing. Another movie that does a lot with that is Terminator, right? Like if we go
Yeah.
back in time and we kill Sarah Connor, she doesn't give birth to John Connor, and he doesn't like lead the resistance against the robots.
Right.
But here's another thing. So, what is the implications of episode 4 of What If with this with the Spider-Man trailer that just came out? Now, I'm of the mind that these things are connected. If you know anything about the trailer, it's been weirdly like not shown, and even like the trailer we've seen has been leaked. And Doctor Strange is like kind of weird in it. Like, why is he so happy to just do this thing for Peter Parker?
Right.
Change one thing in another absolute moment. That's an absolute. Have you seen the preview, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's another absolute moment. Like he takes out like everybody who like the moment of everyone knowing who Spider-Man is or whatever, and that's messing with time too. But he's going against the the advice of Wong. So I'm just wondering if like evil Strange is involved, but ultimately I don't think he is because I'm assuming you're probably going to know that they're going to have an epic battle. Do you want me to spoil it for you?
Go for it. Yes, please.
I don't think there's a reason actually to. We don't need to set time out of it, but the Watcher actually does get involved. He's not supposed to, and I don't think ultimately he does. But also, what made this thing just made me just insanely love it is the ending, where it's like it's not a happy ending for existence.
Yeah.
And just their ability to go there, like their ability to go to the literal end of time with Loki, their ability to kind of snap half the universe away. It goes to show that Marvel is going to make you feel it.
Yeah.
We died at the end of episode 4.
Yeah. We as the audience in that world.
Yeah. Oh, one last thing. Stephen King always talks about this, and it's also a metaphor for Breaking Bad. But the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yep.
And your guy, Mr. Freeze, right, wants to bring his wife back. Doctor Strange wants to bring his girlfriend back, and it's like you can do that, but that's going to hurt other things. Well, or you're going to turn into a villain in the process.
Well, and what's even more interesting with that is because not only. Because you can become obsessed with something and it not. I don't think all obsession is inherently toxic, if that makes any sense. Like you being obsessed with something isn't inherently a toxic thing, but it seems like with every story that we read or watch that involves somebody trying to bring somebody back, it's constantly creating.
I was not meaning to make you laugh. I'm sorry.
No, it's perfect. It constantly shows us that the individual that's trying to accomplish that becomes obsessed to a point where it is toxic, and they will do literally anything, sacrifice anybody. It doesn't matter. There is no price too small to event, because they've sunken all their time into doing this and have sacrificed themselves a lot. So I think that like with the instance with Mr. Freeze, I'm sure a lot of it is like, I've come too far. Like, I can't stop now. Like, I can't allow Batman to end my research because I've already been doing it for 20 years. That means this past 20 years was for nothing. And like that, but then they take it to like an extreme obsessed level where like just nothing can stop me from doing this. Strange going against the advice of Wong, accepting, the power of all these seemingly deities from other universes to increase his own power. Like, he didn't care that it was, because you also have to think about it. Okay, let's say you accomplish bringing her back. Well, the universe is now falling apart. So you're going to bring her back into that world that you've created, and she's already going to go. Like, you've kind of wasted all of that just to have the same thing happen. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but.
Oh, yeah. Or it's like a monkey paw thing where you bring her alive, but she has a fucking broken neck. I just cussed. Pardon this, Morton College Radio. She has a broken neck. She can't walk. Her brain's oozing out of her head. Or you probably haven't seen it, but you can only imagine, like, well, what is Doctor Strange going to look like at the end of this? Is she even going to reject him? So he brings her back to life, and she's disgusted by him. Well,
Mm-hmm.
now what are you going to do, Doctor Strange? You're going to neuralize her to where she actually enjoys your presence. So unbelievable 40 minutes of television.
40
And I'll
minutes
admit it,
too. That's another thing. Like they're not 20-minute The Office long episodes out there. Like
it's
they
3 acts too.
yeah,
It's wonderful.
it's a full
Oh,
3 act structure. It's 40 minutes, almost an hour long. I mean, this What If series is turning out to be freaking solid. Like I was kind of like after the first episode, I'm like, okay. Like what we were saying before, like it's a gender and region swap of Captain America. Like, all right, that's cool. Like, it's empowering for women and little girls to watch this episode because it shows that even a woman can be Captain America and be a super soldier. In the second episode, we get Chadwick Boseman, which hits us in the feels. It was really funny to see that one guy who in the
with
beginning of
Thanos too.
yeah, and Thanos, Josh Brolin. And I'm pretty sure the voice actor for Nebula, Nebula had a cool look. She had kind of like a Jessica Rabbit, type feel to her, which was nice. Uh, it was also really funny to see the guy in the original Galaxy of the Guardians of the Galaxy, whenever he's like Star-Lord, like the guy who was like, capturing him, trying to capture him
Yondu?
the first time. What's that?
Yondu?
No, it's not Yondu. The guy with the bald headed guy in the beginning, whenever he was trying to
Watcher.
steal. No, in the
Oh
original
man.
Guardians of the Galaxy, when he's trying to
Oh,
steal
like
the
Korak or something.
yeah,
Yeah, I know.
whatever. Yeah. But in this version, he's a huge fan of Star Lord. Like he knows who Star
Oh,
Lord
that's
is,
funny. Yeah.
and that was so funny. Like something that Peter Quill would have dreamed of. But that goes to show T'Challa as Star Lord is a person who wants to save the universe and to, bring balance and peace, but in a gracious way, and to show people that, you can care and love each other and still accomplish all these things. Peter Quill is just selfish. He's a Ravager because he wants to steal things, and he's, all about himself. And that's why he doesn't have the reach that T'Challa had, which was, he has the fame and notoriety that Quill always wanted. Nobody knows Quill by
Yeah.
Star-Lord.
He convinced Thanos not to go for the stones. And also, I mean, Peter Quill is easily the worst Avenger.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because T'Challa prevents Thanos from getting the stones by convincing him that it's not that you can accomplish what you're trying to do without exterminating half the population. Whereas Peter Quill is the reason why they weren't able to get the glove off, or the gauntlet off, the first time around. Because like if he would have just left Thanos alone, during that whole time, he would not, like, they would have gotten the gauntlet off and then game over. But no, he let his emotions get the better of him because he's selfish and self-centered, and refuses to think of the bigger picture of everyone else. So it's just a nice little like subtext into the comparisons of the ethics and of all these characters.
Yeah, and also, what a black guy can do versus what a white guy can do. An unimpressive white guy
Very
versus a pretty
unimpressive.
awesome person of color. Well, hey, yeah, 2 more episodes of that. We got Shang-Chi coming up. I think that's the next big one.
Yep.
And also, Aaron, you can be my second mic whenever I talk about our presenting sponsor. Why not? Morton College. Did you know Morton College offers 17 associate's degrees in applied sciences, 5 transfer program degrees, and 40 career certificates, including programs like forklifting, pharmacy, welding, and vet tech. We can also add to that paralegal and cannabis certification.
What?
Like, I'm not sure, like you can take law in it,
Uh-huh.
how to grow it, how to run a business, but there's like an 18 credit program. I've actually asked, like, what makes it, like, do you get, are you more hireable at the, like I guess dispensary?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. Those jobs are actually hard to come by, but specifically the paralegal one, I was also with the curriculum committee, Aaron, I know all this stuff, but the paralegal one, you learn how to do like 3 or 4 like things that paralegals need to do, and then you become a paralegal at a law firm And I'm sure it's that way with the cannabis certification, with the forklifting, and also not to mention the #1 nursing program in the Chicagoland area. Morton College is excited to offer day, evening, online, and hybrid courses during the fall, summer, and spring semesters to meet the demands of your busy schedule. So whether you're looking to transfer to a 4-year school or earn credits towards a career, say in paralegal, Morton College has the classes and schedule for you. For more information, call 708-656-8000, look them up on Facebook, or visit www.morton.edu. Aaron,
Yes,
you should come to a Chicago before little baby Edgar's born.
we're talking about it. We've Lisa and I have already like legitimately talked about
Little baby Jedgar.
little baby Jedgar. That's not happening. My dad, like, whenever I told him that Lisa was pregnant, he's like, my dad's name is Travis, and he's like, okay, well, I'll accept nothing short of Travis as the name of the child. And I'm like, oh, well, that's a real tall order that I don't know
Have
if I'll
you
be able.
have you thought of names yet?
No, like we've always said that if we do have twins, which is a real possibility because my mother-in-law is a twin and my mom is a twin, so there's like twins running our family. Uh, we're gonna
Skips
name them.
generations.
It might. Uh, so
No,
if
it does skip generations. So if you're the generation that wasn't a twin, then yeah, you're right. You could have twins.
Yeah, we could have twins. So if we do end up having twins, Luke and Leia, like I've already been set on that. If it's a boy
Luke and
girl
Leia.
combo, it's going to be Luke and Leia. There's just really no way of getting around that. Um, we haven't really thought too much as far as like, we haven't gotten to that point yet. Um, I think we're just kind of wrapped up in the excitement of it.
Yeah, take your time.
Yeah.
No rush. Trust me.
Yeah. I
All
mean,
right,
Megatron's on the table, but I don't know if she'll go for it.
Megatron. I
I might
love
just
Megatron.
I might just write that in like without her seeing it on the birth certificate. But we'll see.
All right. So what's our next discussion? Oh, I wanted to. You were kind of enjoying the persuade or the communication theory
Yeah.
in this last week with the uses and gratification of the of media.
Yeah.
And so we were thinking about, especially with the topic I'm about ready to come up with here, maybe having like a little communication corner for the overnighters,
Let's do it.
if it ever applies. I always never like having segments and then you got to shoehorn them in, So this could
But
be
at the
kind of
same
like a
time, what I enjoy about them though is the fact that, it just shows us how we are affected by communication in everyday life, like just like in the stuff that we're about to talk about, like it's literally how we are motivated to do anything,
mm-hmm.
and that involves communication. And so to kind of add those little nuggets of information, it's I literally tell people what lithologica is all the time because I learned it from your show.
Oh, that's funny. The
Yeah,
lithologica.
yeah,
That's
like
hysterical.
anytime someone like he's like they're like, man, it's on the tip of my tongue. I'm like, fun fact for you, that's called lithologica. And they're like,
Wow.
oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So I love the educational parts of any podcast.
All right. So what do we want to call what we're calling? And Aaron, I want you to be the judge of this. But what I'm going to talk about right now is how to influence. You think that's a good word? Influence?
Yeah,
Influencing humans? Let's look at the definition of influence.
let's do it.
The capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something, or the effect itself, like the influence of television violence. That's the definition they give. And so this has been a slow moving influence year with the vaccine. And with every human needing the vaccine, you see persuasion in action. Okay. Now let's go through the year. And also, I asked you to give some examples of things that are persuaded and incentives and mandated, right?
Right.
So let's go through the year of the vaccine here. I remember when the first woman in England got the vaccine, and I thought to myself, okay, I cannot wait to get it. Those people you did not have to persuade, right? They were gonna get it. You did not have to change their behavior one bit. Okay, there's nothing there. There's no influence, right? Okay, so now we get to the point where it's like, okay, we need to. Here's the first word of influence: persuade. Persuade is the act of changing someone's actions, beliefs, values, and whatnot, but you don't necessarily give them money to do it, and you certainly don't make them do it. Persuasion is what we did in public speaking and debate, right? We have to
Right.
persuade the judge to vote for us. We have to persuade them to give us the 1 versus the 6. You could never say, "Hey, judge, vote for us, and I'll give you $50, or I'll give you a cupcake." And maybe you try to like. I would always say, "Hey, I'll give extra speaker points to the team that gives me flow paper." Like every time, people would be jumping over their boxes
They
to give me
literally
flow paper because they were like,
sprinting.
"An incentive, an
Yeah.
incentive."
Yeah.
And
It worked.
so yeah, and so nowadays you'll hear television commercials and advertisements to get the vaccine. I think I even saw one on YouTube
Hmm.
saying something like, "You got questions? That's okay. Just consult your doctor." And so the first way we influence people is by simple persuasion. Logos, ethos, and pathos is an important part of that. And if you don't know, logos logic, ethos is credibility, the idea of being taken seriously, and then pathos emotion. So, what do you think? What did you put down in your life where you were just kind of like easily persuaded by it?
Well, I mean, let me first ask this because you had said that, like, seeing the first person getting the vaccine is like, you don't need any persuasion for that because like you've already convinced yourself like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do it. But isn't like just like the very process of watching somebody else do it, isn't that like, does that not provide a little bit of persuasion itself, would you say? Because like if I see another human do it, like, okay, I'll do it. Like if
Oh yeah,
someone
it's
of,
like
of
a we
sound
see what
mind,
we do kind of
yeah,
thing. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah. So
Oh yeah, and they'll say that, by the way, in child development, right? Eat with your kid, obviously spending time with them, but also it's like they watch you take the spoon of cereal and put it in your mouth, and then that's how they learn. You're not
right,
supposed to have the phone at the table or anything like that. And one of Frankie's favorite things to do right now is to pretend like he's making my daddy drink here, but he
oh,
does
that's
it. He
cute.
does it like it's super cute. He does it from a fake standpoint, though, pretends to do it. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, that is exactly just seeing another human do it.
yeah.
That's what I think that's kind of like what kept us alive longer than our predecessors.
Hmm.
Also, our predecessors were skeptical. They were always skeptical of going into the next bush because there could have been a saber-toothed tiger there. And our
Right.
our, our, our forefathers who didn't live were like, "Oh, let's go see what's in this bush." But that skepticism is what is stopping all of us from getting the vaccine, right?
Hmm.
Because that's every person that survived was skeptical. This wasn't part of my theory, but yeah, like being skeptical of England, being skeptical of a vaccine, being skeptical of whatever it may be. What you're doing is you're trying to lower your risk. But I mean, what's compare that to the coronavirus is what I'm saying.
Right.
Um, so trying to think of anything that's easily persuaded by me. I didn't really come up with a list. I was just more like just informing.
Yeah, no,
Um,
well, my
but I
list
think
on
like,
that
but I think
was,
like our politicians are very persuasive, where it's like they don't give us money to vote for them, or they don't mandate us to vote for them. So I voted for Joe Biden because he would just simply the things he said. I guess that'd be my answer.
yeah. uh I mean, for me, a lot of, I've been persuaded a lot by, like the vaccine information that's been coming out. Like I've been, because I think skepticism is not a bad thing. Like, to hear someone say like, I don't know if I'm going to get the vaccine, like I don't immediately go, idiots. Like, okay, well, why? Why don't you want to get the vaccine? Like the reasons why you're critical about it is what kind of separates reasonable from unreasonable. Like if you don't want to get it because they think you're going to be microchipped, then like that's when I'm like, okay, that's unreasonable. But if someone's like, I just like Lisa had to get an allergy panel done because she didn't know if she was going to be allergic to any of the ingredients of the vaccine. So if someone's like, well, I have certain allergies to certain things, and I've done a lot of credible research that says that, I might be at risk for having negative side effects with the vaccine, like stuff like that, I can understand. Um, so I mean, to be honest with you, the last thing that I was like persuaded by was a GoPuff commercial. Like I really just I was not in the mood for snacks. Do you know what GoPuff is, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like delivery.
Yeah, it's like an on-demand like snacks, drinks, like literally anything that you can think of, we deliver it. I work there, so uh but yeah, I didn't even want snacks or anything, but I saw that. I'm like, man, I could get some ice cream delivered to me, and that would be really good. So like just having that access, like now just like, okay, well, and not only, and they have like a reward point system. And that's the thing that I am like persuaded by the most. Is generally not like, because there's like a certain point where like a money incentive just might not be worth it. Like you can say, hey, I'll give you $10,000. Like, okay, well, what I have to do is like, well, you have to like give me a hand. Like, okay, well, that's not worth it. It's like, yeah, it's 10 grand, but I don't want to lose my hand as a consequence to it. Or, you know, hey, we'll give you $20 an hour. You just will never be able to see your family again because you're going to be here working all the time. Like, okay, well, that's not worth it to me. Like, that incentive is not worth the consequence of losing time with my family. So I generally go to what, like, anything that has a reward system, because if I'm gonna be spending money there, I like getting free things in return. Just like, I guess, being appreciated for my business um is something that I like the most.
And Aaron gave away the second type of influence, and that's incentive.
Oh
Um,
yeah, my
so,
bad.
and the government and all the governors knew this, right? At the very beginning, don't the persuasion here is not getting the friggin' virus. But then there came a point to simply persuade people. Then you get those people that want like a comparative advantage framework just shelled out to them. Then we have incentives, right? An incentive lottery, Vaxamillion, get your vaccine, we'll put you in a lottery. Bill Maher said, people in India are dying for a COVID shot. People here want to only get one if they get a jet ski.
Yeah,
There's been scholarships. There's been flat out $100. Um, Vaccine passports are kind of in this instance, but these have become political. It's basically saying like you can do something if you have the vaccines. That's kind of an incentive. Like you can't go to a White Sox game unless you have a vaccination, or you can't get
right.
your education without a vaccination. And I thought of one whenever you were just talking that would kind of be both persuasion and incentive. But have you ever had to sit through a timeshare persuasive argument?
Yes.
Okay. The way they get you to do that in Vegas and pretty much anywhere is they give you a crap ton of stuff. And this was on our wedding day, we got free tickets to Blue Man Group. I think it was like looks like $100 or like or maybe like two free tickets to the buffet, or a 40 buck. No, I think it was like more like $40 free. And you had to sit through an hour and a half or 2 hour timeshare. And if those of you don't know what a timeshare is, it's like, oh my God, it's like you pay a bunch of money a month for like you can go to a hotel just anytime, but it's expensive.
Really,
And
it's
the
not worth
people
the
there
return.
are very persuasive. Like they make a lot of money if you sign their quick claim deed to the
Mm-hmm.
hotel. But at that same time, it's like their incentive is massive. And so they're really trying to twist your arm. Um, I'm not so sure like your job is more or less in an incentive, but basically anytime someone's trying to influence you to do something and they give you money to do it. So how much, if you are vaccine hesitant, how much money is it going to take you to just be like, okay, I'll do it? And to conclude this part is I remember saying on a podcast one time, it was like, well, how loose are your morals if you're like, oh, I don't want to get microchipped, but then suddenly, the government's going to offer you $150 to get microchip to get vaccine, and you just do it. Like,
Right.
well, like you didn't care about getting chipped in the first place, because if you
Yeah.
certainly did care about it, you wouldn't put that vaccine in your arm for $10,000.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's an interesting point within itself, just because, like, are those really your morals if they can be bought? Like, if you can be convinced out of something that you claim that you are just, this is my point, this is what I believe, and nothing and no one will convince me otherwise. Well, we'll give you $150. All right, well, let's do it.
And
Like,
you
did
see
you
how
really
not,
believe that to begin with, or were you just
yeah,
kind of going with the, like, what everybody else was saying?
and you see how non-persuasive that is. Like
Yeah.
you can just say, "I'll give you $100." Okay. Um, yeah. So anything else on incentive?
No, go.
Yeah, with like 5 minutes left. Damn, Aaron's going fast. Well, the third one is we're getting really close to this because people are getting so fed up. But before I announce what it is, what you just said there was like having like your argument for why you don't get vaccinated. This person has got to be so exhausted by now, just the entire world against them and making fun of them for taking like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and just whatever it is and not getting the vaccine. I would get to a point where the incentive is leave me the F alone. Like that's incentive enough
Yeah.
because I'm harping on you. I'm sure society's harping on you, and all you hear all day is how people need to get vaccinated. Like it must be exhausting
Yeah.
to be an adult that's unvaccinated. But eventually, what if someone tells you you have to do it? And that's our third and final type of influence is a mandate.
Yeah.
I learned about mandates in policy debate where it was
Hmm.
like you get to fiat your mandates
Right.
of your policy, right? Like if you legalize marijuana, it's like you mandate that it's legal, you mandate that it's taxed, you mandate that it's enforced. Like those are just mandates. It's like you have to do it.
Right.
We don't like to do that in the United States. You know, this is like land of the free, home of the whopper, so to speak. And so when the government's telling you that you have to get vaccinated, there's even military personnel right now that don't want to do that. And they are literally property of the US government. And they don't want to get vaccinated by mandate. Um, at my schools right now, Aaron, so I teach at two community colleges in Illinois, and the governor passed down vaccine mandates. And so both schools are going to require me to have my vaccinations, even though at one of my schools, I'm only online. So that's and so every and by the it took the FDA approval to make sure that it was a mandate because you can't mandate people take an unauthorized vaccine that might be beyond the pale. But
Yeah.
you've noticed since it's been authorized and it's okay, now the federal employees have to do it. Now the military have to do it, and mandates are coming.
Yeah.
So and by the way, think about like the year, if you were to break it up into like thirds, and I even said this in 2020, 2021 is going to be the year of the vaccine. The first part of the year, to kind of recap all this, was simple persuasion. The middle four was kind of like incentives. And a new incentive is simply not getting the Delta variant and dying quicker.
Yeah.
And then finally, there's going to be a point, especially with the winter coming on, we're just going to make you do it. And there's no incentive. You lost the opportunity to get your jet ski. You don't get $200. You don't get to be persuaded by it. We're just going to make you do it.
Yeah. Well,
And there's no persuasion at all.
and how is it not persuasion enough whenever very famous anti-vaxxers and very famous, just politicians who are, like local politicians. Like there was a Republican in Texas that he was an anti-vaxxer. He was against, even the thought of the coronavirus. He mocked it and he died of the coronavirus. Like, how do you okay, let's say I didn't want to get the vaccine and I didn't believe coronavirus was a thing. If Paul Stanley died of the coronavirus and I didn't believe that the coronavirus existed, and neither did he believes that it exists and he got the vaccine. But let's say I idolized him. He didn't believe it. I didn't believe it, but he died of it. I'd be like, okay, well, maybe I need to change my perspective on this because the people that I am influenced by who don't believe it are dying from it. So, like, at what point do you not see, like, okay, well, all these people that I like that say don't get it are kind of dying from it. Like, I don't know what to do now. Like, how do you not get to that point? I don't
Yeah.
like, I see all these TikToks of, when I'm going to be asked about my vaccine card, like they're like flipping off the camera, like, here's my vaccine card. Like, all right, man, well, you do realize that, that middle finger is not valid and you're not going to be able to get into the game. Like, just because you flip someone off and you show your cross that you believe in Jesus does not, like, I saw one guy who like pulled out his Bible. I'm like, okay, well, that's not an authorized form of vaccination proof. So
Yeah, again, like how exhausting is it to be just so angry about it? And it's like,
yeah,
just do it. Like
you
it's
have been
clear.
vaccinated for so many things that you don't
Yeah.
even think about. And you know why you don't think about them? because you won't freaking get them. We don't have to think about polio because it has been extinguished. We take polio vaccines and measles but you know what happens when you don't take the measles vaccine? You get measles, and then you spread it to other people who don't have the measles vaccine. Like how do we know all of that? How is it that we know all of that and no one has ever argued that up to this point? Yeah, if we didn't have the polio vaccine, polio would still be going around. Yeah, I mean, if you don't get the measles vaccine, you can get measles and it's pretty terrible. No one has ever argued that. But all of a sudden now we're arguing, well, I mean, how do we know this vaccine is actually going to eradicate this disease? I mean, it's not like we have empirical evidence that proves that whenever we put scientists behind, extinguishing a disease, that we can actually accomplish it. We don't have proof of that. We don't have proof that vaccines work. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
I have a hard time that thinking highly educated people aren't vaccinated and have legit reasons.
These are the same people that were telling me not to believe everything on the internet whenever I was a kid, who now believe everything that they see on the internet. Absolutely everything. That's the freaking problem.
Yeah.
I'm trying so hard not to rant.
Severely uneducated. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I read something today that said that 1 in 6 people in Tulsa can't read the label on a prescription bottle, can't fill out an application completely, and can't basically understand complicated paragraphs. Basically saying 1 out of 6 people in Tulsa are illiterate. And I legitimately was heartbroken by that. Man, that sucks. There are people in this world who can't read, and even if they can read, they're not literate enough to understand the context of what they're reading. And that's really sad. But
it makes you think, right?
Yeah. But who failed these people, Jason? Who failed these people so badly that they are so afraid of something that we've done for years? I mean, politics is really what's ruined all of this.
I blame Bush. I was going to say Bush.
this red versus blue has just been the poison. And here's another question, and maybe you can talk about this in our next episode about a communication theory, or if this applies in communication theory.
Sure.
Watch George Carlin, watch Dave Chappelle, watch any really good edgy stand-up comedian, and they will say something along the lines of, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I believe that everyone in the White House is just out to screw us, just to make us fight with each other. They all say that, and everyone in the crowd is clapping as if they all agree with that. Yes, why are we fighting? Because it's the government that's making us fight each other. But then they turn around as soon as they walk out those doors, F you, Trump supporter, go to hell, Biden supporter. We're right back at each other's throats. It's when it's pointed out to us, we laugh and acknowledge that it's true. But as soon as we walk away from that realization, we're right back at each other's throats.
Yeah. I'm working on a feature discussion where I'm trying to come up with a list of things that we all have in common. And I'm going to lead off with none of us like wearing masks. There's not a single liberal out there that's I can't, I'm so excited to wear masks. No one likes wearing masks.
I hate wearing
masks. But the difference is people who are respectful of the pandemic and people who are not. That's the big difference. But again, we have that in common. We're not so different, you and I.
Yeah.
But anyways, Aaron, we're going on 59 minutes here, and yeah.
I think that was a good place to end it.
We get really better every time, I tell you. Overnighters. I'm telling you.
I have a lot of fun, even if I hope the content is good every time, but I at least have fun, and I hope everyone else is having fun too. All right, man. I
think it's great.
I agree. I re-listen to our episodes all the time.
Well, hey man, send me the MP3 as soon as you can.
I will. I'll send the MP3 soon. I was trying to quote Michael Scott, but I screwed it up. The
PowerPoint.
I'll send you all that stuff, and we'll get it posted soon. But I'll let you go, and you go back to being a dad.
Congrats on the daddy stuff.
Thank you, buddy. I really do appreciate that. And I'll talk to you next time.
See ya.
Bye. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I know it's kind of if you're watching us on YouTube, I'm off staring at the computer the entire time because I'm looking at Jason. It's kind of hard for me to look at a camera and not seeing, you know, Jason as he's communicating. Uh, but thank you so much for joining with us. I really, really appreciate for everyone who stuck with us on our episodes. I really hope, like I said, that this content you're enjoying. If there's any content that you want to talk about or that you want us to cover, you can always, go into our social networking. The Overnighters has a Facebook page. We have a Twitter page. You can get a hold of Jason at, I think it's at the Jedgar on Twitter. Um, and he also has his email links on his bio page on that as well. You can obviously get us on oopslawtopics.podbean.com, and you get our YouTube videos on YouTube at The Overnighters. Well, again, thank you everybody for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and sign off and get back to the wifey, but you guys stay safe, be kind to each other, and take care.